The Linn-Mar Board of Directors meeting will be called to order at 5 p.m. in the boardroom of the Learning Resource Center. Can you please take roll to determine quorum?
Buckholz. Morey.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Rollinger.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Wall.
Here.
And Weaver.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Clark and a second by Rachel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We are going to kick off tonight with a special recognition, so if Officer Dobbs wants to come out front and center. Last week was School Resource Officer Appreciation Day, but we didn't have a meeting last week, and we don't like to skip things, so we're going to recognize you tonight. Whereas school resource officers have a direct impact on the students, district, and community by ensuring the physical safety of all, building relationships with students and staff, and educating the district and community on safety topics and needs. And whereas school resource officers are trained in school-based law enforcement and emergency response and risk their lives without hesitation to ensure a safe learning environment for students and staff. And whereas school resource officers provide an important bridge between youth, law enforcement, and the community. Therefore, the Linn-Mar Board of Directors does hereby recognize Marion Police Officer Tom Dobbs for faithfully serving the needs of the Linn-Mar Community School District, for protecting the students, staff, and community, and being an example of respect and Linn-Mar pride each day. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Right, so first up under informational reports tonight, we are going to get an update from our student assistant specialists and school counselors at the high school. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you guys.
Okay, is it on? Okay, good evening. I'm Elizabeth Cryer, and I am one of the school counselors at the high school. And I have been at Linn-Mar for, this is my 10th year, and prior to Linn-Mar, I worked for Junior Achievement, which is a nonprofit, and then went back to school and got my school counseling degree from UNI.
I'm Kirsten Witt, one of the school counselors at the high school, and I've been in the Linn-Mar district for 5 years. This is my second year in the counseling department, and I was a substitute teacher in the district before that.
Hi, I'm Kim Bowen, and I have been in the district for 2 years and have been a school counselor for 20 years.
Hello, my name is Dave Kennedy. I've been a counselor here at Linn-Mar for 15 years, and before that, was a social studies teacher at the high school level.
So there are 6 school counselors on our team. 2 of them were not able to make it tonight for various reasons. And then we also have Cheryl Bass, which is our college and career transition counselor. She is an employee of Kirkwood and Linn-Mar and helps us with the college and career transition for students, especially our free and reduced lunch students, minority students, and low SES free and reduced and minority students. And then we also have Tony Nickel and Danielle Patterson. They're our academic assistance counselors on our team. They primarily work with credit recovery and then our Compass program. So as far as the high school counseling program goes, we use the American School Counseling Association ASCA model, which has 3 domain areas in career and college development, academic support, and social emotional learning. This is a national organization model that we follow. And tonight we're gonna provide information about the services for each of those domain areas that we cover, as well as data related to those services, and then goals for the future of our program. So the first domain is career and college development. You can see on the board all the various tasks that we do in terms of career and college development. A lot of these are done in partnership with Cheryl Bass, our college and career transition coordinator. So a couple things that I want to highlight are our job shadows and internships. Those are done in partnership with Workplace Learning Connection, as well as the career tours that we do. Cheryl also this past fall taught a How College Works course to students at the high school, which is a Kirkwood dual enrolled course. Right around 50 students were enrolled in the different sections of those courses. She had 3 sections during the first semester, and this is something that we're going to continue offering next year as well for students. It was very well received by students. They just learned different things that they need to know, not just going into college, but career development as well and career exploration through that course. Here is some data in regards to some of our college and career things that we provide. So as you can see, the graph is our job shadow numbers from 2019-2020 school year until this current school year. You can see the dip in the numbers. That's related to COVID, and a lot of the job shadows went virtually during that time. But we also attribute the growth from this school year to a couple other things. So 337 is the number up there of job shadow applications that we had from students. So two things that we did this year for job shadows is we had at the beginning of the year where all sophomores were brought in to a session during our RTI time. And they were given information about job shadows. Sophomore year is the first year that they can apply. So they were given information about job shadows as well as filling the application out right then. So we were able to capture them into the workplace learning system, and then they will be able to continue to do job shadows throughout the rest of their time in high school. The other thing is that workplace learning connection in the past only had one application window at the very beginning of the school year. This year, they expanded that application window to 3 times through the year, so students could apply 3 different times throughout the school year. The last one just closed, which provided students different times that if they didn't hear about the first window, they were able to apply again, or they were able to apply for multiple job shadows, which was awesome. So the other number up there, so 37 applications for our internships for the summer, so this upcoming summer, which is up from 19 from this past summer. And then we had 4 internships done during this school year. So typically that's in line with things where most of the students are doing those internships with workplace learning during the summer because they have more time. Students earn credit for those internships as well. And job shadows, they don't earn credit, but they are earning experience just from shadowing someone in a job for a couple hours during their day. We also have provided this year college visits to UNI, Iowa State, and Kirkwood. These have been targeted visits for our low-income and underrepresented minority students, but we do have a UNI visit coming up in a couple weeks here on March 1st that's open to all 10th and 11th grade students. So we try and at least get to one of the state schools for all students during each school year. We've done Iowa in the past as well as Iowa State. Then we have an apprenticeship fair scheduled for April 12th, so we're able to get those students that aren't interested necessarily in a 2 or 4 year degree into seeing what an apprenticeship looks like, and they're able to connect with those trades in our area as well and get business cards and make those connections with them. We bring primarily 11th and 12th grade students to that event.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Just a really quick question.
Yeah.
How well are those college visits attended?
They're usually full.
Okay.
Depending, I would say, yeah, all of the state schools are full as far as the number of students that we can bring. So we bring usually just a school bus, and then Kirkwood will do a couple vans, and we've done a couple of those visits throughout the school year. So those are usually full. The ones that we've done Co and Mount Mercy in the past as well, those maybe don't have as many students, which is typical because of them being private schools, smaller private schools. So yeah, no problem. So some goals going forward for us, we are looking to do more grade level seminars, which is something that I just had up on the board. So the grade level seminars are more large group informational sessions for students on the things that they need to know as they go throughout high school in each grade. So we did that with a 12th grade seminar here at the beginning of the year, and that's something that we're looking to increase with the grade levels as well as the frequency of those. We also are looking to increase the amount of classroom time for our college and career lessons, which I'll talk about here in a second, as well as obviously those additional college and career visits for students. So Zello is our one-stop shop for college and career development information and activities. Zello is a web-based program that we use that has career assessments, career search, college search on there, as well as course planning that students will do over their 4 years, and a scholarship database for students to find scholarships. We deliver 3 45-minute lessons that are in the core classes. Those classes are are up on the board there. So 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students all receive these lessons, and the lessons are aligned with the state requirements that we need to deliver to students. So I always tell students that just like their teachers have standards that they have to meet in regards to their classes, we also have standards that we have to meet from the state. And so we do that through these lessons. So in the fall, we delivered lessons to over 1,000 students in 129 classroom sessions. So we were out and about, kids were able to see our faces, we were connecting with kids in different ways. You can see the topics, I'm not gonna go through each of them, but you can see the topics are a variety of things. Again, they're not just related to college. That was something really important when we picked this program a couple years ago. This is our second year using it, that it's not just focused on college, because we know not all of our students are going on to college, that they have a variety of different after high school plans. So we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of those students. So I will pass it on to Kirsten, and she'll talk about the second domain.
So the second domain that we kind of assist with is academic supports. And one goal focus area of ours is the transition from middle school to high school for our students and how we can best support them through that time. There's a bunch of different things that we do throughout the school year to kind of help with that transition, but a few to highlight. High school prep classes. So all middle schoolers in 8th grade take a high school prep class at some point in time during that year. And we go down and we kind of go down to those high school prep classes each quarter to kind of assist with the high school planning when they're coming up. So we also do school counselor meet and greets to the 8th graders. We're actually in the middle of doing this right now. We were at Excelsior today, and we're going to be at Oak Ridge tomorrow, just meeting with all of our students, giving them some information about the high school and helping that transition for them to feel more comfortable coming up here next year. And so then we also have our 9th grade only first day. We've been doing that for 7 years, and it's kind of, so it's a first day of the school year, only 9th graders, and it's kind of a day for them to really connect with others in the school, adults, the students. So we have no academic work on that day, and it's more of an orientation style, and they kind of help them get from class to class, go through the lunch line. There's an activity fair at the end of the day to kind of show students how they can connect at the high school and the different offerings that we have. And then we also introduce supports to them that day as well. We take many different roles, kind of helping our students academically. One of the first ones is the 504 management. So we oversee the 504 plan process at the school and then manage those. Currently, we have about 137 students that we oversee for 504 plans. And this also includes testing accommodations that'll be touched on a little bit later as well. We also oversee all graduation progress monitoring, making sure students are meeting all of the requirements and any requirements for any post-secondary plans they have as well. We have weekly academic and attendance intervention meetings with administration, where we meet with an administrator, we identify students who are at risk for academic and attendance concerns, and then we collaborate with them on creating plans for those students, working with the students, the teachers, and the parents as well. Another key part of the academic supports that we provide is just having those communications with students, parents, and staff, and creating any plans as needed. So we schedule yearly visits for our students, and we try to meet with them on a yearly basis and provide them the opportunity to oversee, to kind of help with their academic goals and assist with post-secondary planning. We also, as Elizabeth touched on earlier, we have Zello lessons that we kind of help with that college and career planning and academic planning as well. And then we also have our concurrent enrollment courses through Kirkwood. And in the fall of 2022, we had 700 enrollments for those dual credit classes as well. And that was for classes at Linn-Mar and through the Kirkwood program. And I will pass it on to David.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the role of counselors in test coordination. So counselors work in a variety of roles with test coordination, but it is a big part of and takes like hundreds of hours for the different tests that are offered to students throughout the year. Nathan is the district coordinator, but then the schools have their test coordinators, and I coordinate the ISASP testing, but then also Kirsten is a coordinator as well, and she coordinates for the students who need accommodations. So it's quite an extensive role. Again, the importance of that role, and the reason why it falls under, an academic support domain for counselors, is that we want to make sure that all students have an equitable testing environment. So that's really the purpose of our coordination of the tests. We want to make sure they're in a testing environment where they can give their best effort, but we're also aware that some students really struggle with test anxiety or need accommodations in order to give their best effort. So that's the reason why it does take a lot of time, but I think we at Linn-Mar, we want to make sure that students are able to give their best effort, and then we use those tests. There's information up there about some of the test results from some students, but the importance of that, to make sure that if, for example, if a student has an IEP reading goal, to make sure that they can take that reading test for the ISASP and be able to evaluate if their program is meeting their needs, and that's how those tests are used. There are some information here about college placement testing, which is another thing that it's not used by all students. In the 21-22, so last school year, we had 413 high school students take the ACT. So again, it's not inclusive where everyone is taking that test. It is becoming optional for some colleges, but Linn-Mar does offer that test 3 times throughout the year, so that if a Linn-Mar student wants to take the test, they can do it at their own school, and their test results were really strong. They had a 23.7 composite score. The state of Iowa average is up there, and they exceeded that. Along with coordinating ACT testing, we also offer practice tests for actually it'd be our sophomores and juniors. So the pre-ACT is a practice test for sophomores, and we do that at the end of their sophomore year. And then the PSAT is in the fall of the junior year. Okay.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that I completely remember, Britt. I'm thinking maybe you will remember. When we went to IASB last year, the conference, and they were offering, I believe it was the ASVAB, but they were doing more interest-based, where would you, fit in terms of careers, and that was completely free.
Sure.
I'm curious if you guys are using that at all.
We use Zello. Zello
I can
is that.
answer that a little bit. So I bet
Okay.
it was the ACT Aspire, maybe, or something similar. The ASVAB we have offered to students that are interested in going into the military.
Right, it's not that exactly, but they are the ones who
Oh,
coordinate.
they are the one, the military is the one that
Correct.
coordinate it.
They are the ones who coordinate that test.
So Britt is right. We have all that we have all of those things to do that they can do through Zello.
It's not, do they know about it? I mean,
Yeah,
is it
so
something that we really are promoting?
Again, we had to kind of go quick, but part of the classroom lessons that they do are those inventories.
Okay.
And so they are doing those career interest inventories within the classroom lessons that are done on Zello. And then they have access. So let's see here. The getting experience, the personality styles, even the work values, those are all, and the career path choices, those are all interest inventories. And I can send you like the actual, like what they look like and stuff as far as students do, but it asks them kind of the likes and dislikes and all of that, and then spits out their career interests.
Is this something we pay for?
Zello is,
Zello
yeah,
is.
yep. Zello is something that we have paid for, and it's.
Let me jump in.
Yeah.
So the state of Iowa requires every district to pick a career information system.
Yes.
And Zello is an approved system that school districts can, and it's some of them are very like check the box free, and some of them incorporate lessons and are more thorough with like scholarship searches and stuff. ASVAB is trying to get into that, but they're not approved yet. So even
Okay,
if
but you remember what I'm talking
Yes.
about, right? Okay.
ASVAB, you could use it for your career information system, but it wouldn't count towards your official like designated
you.
one. So
Okay.
then we have to do something else with it.
Okay, sounds good. Wonderful,
go.
thanks, guys.
Sorry. Honestly, Zello is amazing in terms of me having to pull the reports to give to Nathan at the end of the year. It aligns, like all of those topics align directly with what we have to report out onto the state.
Okay.
So I literally just pull reports for him. It makes my job really easy, and I plug in the number of students that have completed the lessons.
All right.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, so another academic support is using RTI and the counselor's role within the RTI system at the high school. You know, we feel very fortunate that we have academic supports for students. RTI is built into the student's schedule each day. And as counselors, you know, we have, I think Kirsten mentioned, we have the weekly meeting with the administration to kind of evaluate students who are struggling academically. And we then can look at data. Are they attending their RTI sessions? And that's one of the first things we look at. And then, of course, follow up if they're not attending RTI, because that's time where the student can get directly with their teacher. And that's the most proven method of helping a student succeed. There are also other supports, and some things are listed up there about the Learning Center and how important that is for students if they need some tutoring. Maybe they didn't understand something from their geometry lesson that day. We have math tutor in the Learning Center. Just, you know, I think those are tremendous resources for students. And then there are areas where students can be, it's called guided studies, but they can be in a smaller environment within the Learning Center to have an adult to support them with their academic needs. So again, we work with students to make sure they're knowing about the access to these academic supports. That's what our role is after we have these weekly intervention meetings, is to identify, you know, which students are struggling, whether they're getting an incomplete grade or failing a course or just a low grade. And then we can talk with them about some of the resources and then follow up with them, of course, as well, to make sure that they're using those academic supports.
You guys have data on how many kids are being pulled for RTI and how many kids are showing up? And what is how are you able to reinforce that and ensure that children who are being pulled for RTI are actually showing up for it? Because, you know, that's sort of their responsibility. So I'm curious, how are you doing that? And do you have the support you need in order to ensure that kids are getting to their RTI?
That's really a great question to bring up. There's a program, it's called FlexiSched, which is used to first assign students to a teacher during the RTI time. Then they can also use that to find the data, and that's when we have these weekly meetings. We can go back and see, you know, is this student attending their RTI? Of course, you know, that's like you said, that data is really important, because what we're finding is if students do show up, they're going to be so much more successful, and we want to be able to show that this RTI time is you know, useful and having that direct result of helping the students succeed in their classes. So I think the data, I think our associate principal, Joe Nieder, would be able to get a lot of those statistics, because I know he kind of coordinated bringing that program into the high school. So
What is your recourse if you've got kids who are not showing up to their RTI?
So we don't necessarily have, I'll be honest with you, the best support to be able to, I mean, attendance is taken, and then we let parents, you know. But as far as manpower, like we have our associate principals and our administration that are, if they see them in the hallway and things like that, then they'll, and our you know, other staff people will pull them and get them to the RTI sessions. But if they leave the building, then we don't know that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Now, this is only, our third year with RTI built into the schedule, and I will say that each year it's getting better and better as far as attendance goes, so that's a positive for sure, that the more, like, it's built into the culture of, you know, starting at 9th grade for students, the more that they see the benefits of it, for sure. And these intervention meetings, it's just our second year of doing them, and we've tweaked them this year compared to last year, so it's an ever-evolving process for us. Yep.
Does your software, the FlexiSched, does it notify students, like, on their phones to say, like, you've been And then does
They-
it give reminders?
They
like,
get
when
an
it's time
email.
to
So
go?
so they get an email that morning, I believe it is. Yeah, so they get an email that morning, so it's connected with their Outlook, their school email. So as far as notifications and things like that, it's not like a separate program that they would have on their phone. I don't know if that's a capability, but that would be awesome. But it does go to their email, and then teachers also will remind them that day when they see them.
So to me, it sounds like, I mean, there is no doubt whatsoever that when kids are going to their RTI, they're doing better academically by getting that support. But it seems like perhaps we need to provide more support for making sure that kids are getting there. Because if they're left to their own devices, much of the time they will decide they don't want to go. So I think that's an important piece of it, because I believe in RTI time so much. I think it is an incredible thing that we have done, and I never want to see it go. I just want to make sure that we are able to get those kids, because it's probably the kids that need it the most that are the most difficult to get to show up.
Yeah, it's our students that avoid because it's easier to avoid than to get the help, obviously. I mean, we know how that is. And so when I've brought kids to meet with a teacher or anything like that, it's getting over that initial barrier. Yeah. And I moved to the next slide, Dave, because that was part of what you kind of touched on. One of our goals going forward is to increase that data collection to improve that RTI implementation. So reviewing that data even more and seeing that connection of, I mean, we have anecdotal data of knowing when students attend RTI that they pass their classes, but we really this year are starting to focus more on the numbers of that and what that looks like and have that a little bit more. So I'll let Dave continue with the other goals.
No, I think that really summarizes it well, and it's really great to know that, that the board supports those academic supports too. I think, that's the kind of thing that can make a difference and address achievement gap issues and all the things that I think Linn-Mar is striving to do. So I'm glad to hear that. And I'll introduce, or Kim will talk about the last domain regarding social emotional learning.
The last domain, we actually share a great deal with the student assistant counselor, so I'll start on it, and then I know they're gonna continue on with this domain. So we know that there's a lot of different individual needs and issues out there. That is evident, and this is just highlighting some of them. And we want to look at this in a couple different ways. First, we want to see what can we do preventatively, right? So a huge piece that's going on actually right now, another area that we're really hitting hard is the signs of suicide. We already did the classroom lessons, so that's the preventative side. In the middle school, they already are teaching them. So we are in 9th grade, just reinforcing that information in lessons. And so we do that with the student assistant counselors and us going in there. And the nice thing about it is when we're looking at talking with the kids, they take a survey at the end. And we know if they're getting it. More importantly, we get a piece of fact that I think is so important, and that is how many kids are connected to a trusted adult in the school. That statistic, 2 students out of our 9th graders last time. I must have numbers off there, but 2 students were not able to name a trusted adult in 9th grade. 2. And so what that means is we take that student name and then we share it, and then in between 9th grade connection teachers, in between student assistant counselors and counselors, now we have a concerted effort to get those kids connected. And it might be even through extracurriculars or who we think could tap into them. So it doesn't have to be a counselor. It can be the custodian in the school. It can be the bus driver. As long as they're feeling like they have somebody who's going to listen to them, that's what we're excited about. So that was the preventative side. And then on the other side of it, for the signs of suicide, we do offer to parents the opportunity to sign their kids up for screening. School counselors and student assistant counselors do the screening, but it's actually parents who actually sign up for having their kids. screened. And these are statistics last year because, okay, this is another thing we're in the middle of is the screening should have been done, but we had 2 Thursdays in which we had no school. So we're trying it again this Wednesday, and if you've noticed, there is another storm coming. So we actually think it's jinx. But I'm just going to say that we have half of them still to go, but we had 223 students signed up for the screening this year. So obviously we are seeing that parents value this and value the opportunity to open that dialogue with the students. So if they screen positive, doesn't mean they're suicidal. It just means it opens up a communication between the kids, us, and the parents. What can we do to help support you better? And the follow-up is done within 24 hours in between the student assistant counselors and school counselors. We split it up and we just meet with them and then do the follow-up.
Out of 223 students, how many is that out of total in terms of?
There's like 1,100 in the high school, but we really 9th and 10th graders are who we're targeting for parents to sign them up.
So that seems pretty low, is it not? In terms of, as a percentage of that, is it an opt-in
It's
thing?
an opt-in.
Okay.
We send it out, but parents have to opt in. We cannot, it's
Right.
not an opt-out situation. So would we love to see it higher? Probably. But it has increased over the years.
For sure.
And it's just one tool. As we've discussed, we probably could look at the others, and there's a lot of parents who probably don't opt in because they already know. Like, we've already made the contacts. And so if they already know they're being served and that, we're watching them, it's really only going to open those dialogues. So it might be, a majority of those might be parents who maybe question, like, hey, I'm not really sure, so I just want this for reassurance that I'm not missing anything. So hopefully that is helpful. Do we make sure we promote it? Yes. If there's better ways to promote it, we'll be looking for them. But we do have it open for, I think it was 5 weeks for them to parents to sign up, and we put it out in weekly, an email, and then weekly updates after that. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
that? So I assume that when there's a positive result of signs of suicide, that there's follow-up directly with the parent. How often do you find that the parent is surprised by the results, and what does that follow-up look like?
There's actually a protocol that the system does. It is not saying they're suicidal. It is saying we're concerned about things we're hearing and seeing, and there's no scale, but as far as, I guess, do you want to share? Because I'm going to say Jessica actually has done this probably far longer than I have.
I've been doing SOS since we brought it to Linn-Mar. I used to work at Oak Ridge for 10 years, and this is my 3rd year at the high school. So the opportunity to have the SOS preventative lessons is, by the time we have them, it's 3 years. But also any students that really enter our district, it's a really great opportunity for them to learn that it's acknowledge, care, and tell. That's what we are really promoting in making sure that kids aren't taking on their peers' mental health, and they're not taking on their own mental health without realizing that a trusted adult in the home, outside of the home, is really critical with that. In 7th and 8th grade as well, they also get the opportunity to do the screening for that as well. And what they are, it's a 7-question form, and there's 2 questions related to suicidal ideation, which the second part is in the past 4 weeks, have you thought about killing yourself? And then another question is, have you ever in your life thought about it or made an attempt? Those would flag positive for us, and that would indicate we need to do a follow-up meeting with that. We try our hardest to ensure, our makeup day was Friday or Thursday, 2 hour early dismiss, 2 hour late start, we knew we couldn't get all the students in to make sure that before they left at the end of the day that we had talked to them and done those follow-up interviews. The other questions, if 3 or more of them are yeses, and those are related to like possible signs of depression, really self-concept, some of those things that we know are signs of depression, like it was interfering with like how's their sleep, how's their activities, you know, those kinds of things, and those are the positive follow-ups that we do too. And I would say in the 6 or so years that I've done, we probably have probably 10-ish% of parents that are surprised, but we err really on the side, and that's what SOS does, on the side of caution, is if there's any warning signs, even if in those 2 suicidal ideation statements, we still call on those. Like for example, there's somebody that I had a couple weeks ago that I had screened her, she'd screened last year, flagged positive, and I knew it was a situation where it was the, have you ever in your whole life? I thought it might have been the same that we had the year before, but I still pulled her for an interview because I just wanted to make sure. And that's kind of our ethical responsibility, and then just to touch base with the parents, and they're always really appreciative of that as well. Do we always wish it would be more people? And I think our teachers too. We worked with teachers that said, hey, has so-and-so done the SOS screening? We're worried about them. And those are times where the teachers, like knowing these kids, seeing them every day for 45 minutes or 90 minutes, know that, hey, we've got some mental health concerns there too. So it's really like, it's just a whole wraparound system that I really think our counselors, our parents, our administrators, and then peers are also doing as well.
And another opportunity for us to really focus on social emotional learning real early is the 9th grade connections. And that is really, we hit it hard at the beginning of the year, the first 2 weeks. We are working with 9th graders. Instead of having RTI, we have them for a half an hour. And we have 51 connection groups with at least 2 teachers assigned to those groups. And the importance of it is building relationships, okay? We have those relationships. That's how we get those trusting adults. Now we know, right? We have more people looking out for those kiddos. And so besides doing the social emotional learning, you also see that there is some focus on academic success and post-secondary planning. But I would say every lesson, walking in the door, the first thing we put is, remember, greet every student coming in and make sure that you're doing a check-in of some sort. And so with that many adults in the room, either 2 out of 12, 15 students, we're really looking at, that's a nice ratio. And we have even focus groups. This is a new concept this year, and you'll see it, one of our goals is to increase it. Given feedback, we can do more with it, but we have 5 groups formed that the middle school flagged to us that, hey, these are kids that we're really concerned about. Will they have academic success? Will they have social emotional success at the high school? And so with that, we, all of the school counselors and student assistant counselors are in the classroom with them during that time. And so we're paired up and we can give them that support. And I can say that when we have 10 kids to 4 adults in a room, that's pretty spectacular, okay? It is kind of a neat thing, and I can say that I just, last Friday got an email from one of the parents thanking us for putting their kid first because they had some horrible experiences, and they have a whole new outlook on the high school. And I think just knowing that they're connected and makes a huge difference. So we will be tracking their success, academic success, but also social emotionally. We'll have anecdotal information. And we're just going forward, for us, we are going to be focusing on volunteer day opportunity for all seniors. We just think that's huge, that kids really see how valuable they are to society and they feel some sense of accomplishment. So we're bringing that back this year. We're also going to just look for what other supports we can put in place, especially for the transition for the new high school students that come in. We have right now 125 new students that came into our school from the beginning of the school year. 125 new students, that in some schools is a whole grade level. So just putting that in perspective. So that's putting everybody's efforts into it to make sure they feel comfortable and welcome at Linn-Mar High School. And with that, student assistant counselors, unless you have any immediate questions for us.
I just have one question, and I don't know if it's better answered by you guys or if it's better answered by Shannon or if there's somebody else that would better answer. But one of the things you've talked a lot about tonight is that transition from middle school to high school. And I've got pardon me, I have a freshman this year, and I wonder, you know, when they go from the workload from 8th grade to the workload to 9th grade, it's just night and day. And I wonder if we are looking kind of backward to say, do we need to better transition them in middle school, you know, to kind of have a increasing workload so that when they get to 9th grade, they're not completely overwhelmed. It seems like they just don't have that stamina because they haven't been required to have that at the middle level.
I can jump in on that one. That's something that we are always talking about, is that transition. Anytime we switch buildings, but especially that 8th to 9th grade year is a big one. You know, the expectations are higher at the high school as the kids get there, and as 9th graders that can be a little daunting. So there's always that push-pull of what are 8th graders really ready for developmentally, emotionally, what is there, what do we need to do in that piece. So it's something we constantly are addressing and looking at, and probably something we need to continue to revamp to see is there more at the 8th grade level, or we do a little bit less at the 9th grade level as they first start as well. What is that balance, that transition point? Because that 8th to 9th grade transition is a big deal, and you heard the focus the counselors have had to help address that, and we know it's still probably not enough yet. Need to continue to develop off of what's established there already. So I think that's a work in progress.
And I think I'll just add to that we also see the difference depending upon what the classes the students signed up for. If they took that challenging advanced class, or if they're taking this, what I call safe for some of them, and like, well, I don't want that much homework, and so, you know, I'm going to take the regular English, even though we know they would have academic success in the advanced class with effort. So your child, we're glad that he or she is challenged, but we would like to see all kids actually feel challenged in the high school.
Okay, we're here spending a few minutes to talk about the Student Assistance Program at the high school, and we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Kevin McCauley. I'm one of the Student Assistance Counselors. I've actually been at Linn-Mar for 31 years. Before I came to Linn-Mar, I worked at the Area Substance Abuse Council for 4 years. I was in the Prevention Education Department and also outpatient counseling.
My name is Janessa Carr. This is my 7th year here at Linn-Mar Schools, and before then I was working in the Iowa City School District as a student and family advocate for 3 years.
My name is Sean Knight, and I'm the Family Resource Specialist here at Linn-Mar. I've been here for about almost 3 years now. Prior to that, I worked at Four Oaks in several different roles for about 12 years.
I'm Jessica Deal. I'm another student assistance counselor at the high school. This is my 3rd year at the high school, and prior to that, I had 10 years experience as a student assistance counselor at Oak Ridge. And prior to that, I worked for a long time in juvenile justice and victim services.
Okay, a couple main themes for the Student Assistance Program at the high school. First off, we worked very closely with the school counselors, and they were highlighting some things that we do with them. Our main area is to provide prevention efforts and support efforts for students that are dealing with social, emotional, or mental health. For myself, all four of us are just going to talk about the specific areas that we kind of specialize or deal with, and my prevention efforts come to a couple programs. One is SODA, Students Opposed to Drugs and Alcohol, and we have monthly regular activities that the students participate in. This program is student facilitated, so the activities that we do are decided by the students. And then we have TRI, and there's a picture of our TRI students. It's Teens Reaching Youth, and they go down into our elementaries and middle schools and provide lessons on healthy lifestyles, making good choices, and being role models. And we, the nice part is we were concerned a couple years ago with COVID that we weren't able to do that, but now we're getting back on track, and we're getting real strong involvement with our students at their lower levels. And as far as student support that I provide, I tend to deal with a population that maybe has been in a little bit of trouble, like a school policy violation. We believe that if somebody has violated a school policy, they will face some type of suspension or consequence, but also included in that is mandatory counseling with myself. And then in that process, we include the parents in that. So that way, they just don't get a couple days out of school. They have to work on themselves, and we try to work with and try to figure out the root of the issue. I do provide some substance abuse and misuse screenings. They are research-based. The one is the SBIRT that comes from our Department of Public Health, and we can screen on alcohol or other drugs. And then we also have, it's becoming popular, vaping, and we can do some screenings on that, and we can do that through the My Life, My Quit program. And also we have permission from the Penn State University to do a screen for students that may be identified under a policy violation with that. So then we can share those results with families and determine what type of intervention or services we need to provide. I also deal with anybody that has a co-curricular violation. We have a cooperation with the I think it's the 5th Judicial District we're in, or Juvenile Court, 6th, okay? That anytime someone's a Linn-Mar student and they have legal trouble, we can provide counseling or service right in our high school instead of having them referred to a community resource. And that's a nice program we have because we know their attendance, their grades, and everything that's happening versus going to an agency once a week for like a 5-week period. We can provide much more intense intervention. Also dealing with any in-school suspensions, we have behavior support, and then I do get a number of referrals from the community. Community agencies, hospitals will refer back to all of us to provide support and services. Okay, and then I just want to briefly highlight our student assistance team. You can see up there, there's a number of staff members, including the school counselors and the student assistance counselors, and these posters were designed by Radha Patel. She's the class of 2023. She designed this poster, and we have these plastered all over the high school. What this basically is saying is if a student needs to talk to somebody, these staff members have been trained in some brief counseling skills and intervention, and they will make referrals if a student comes to them back to the school counselors or the student assistance counselors, and then from there, we'll take over the intervention and decide what resources or help is needed. And the nice thing is when you're talking about relationships, and I know the school counselors were talking about that, these teachers have great relationships with students. We have them strategically placed throughout the building, and we also have them from all other types of disciplines, or like math, science, different parts of the buildings, so students can develop relations with them. They will come up, they're basically a bridge back to us, and if the students aren't aware or don't really know us that well, the student assistance team members will be that bridge back to us, and that's been very beneficial, and we have a lot of students take advantage of that during the school year.
My area of specialty is support students on social emotional issues. I work with a lot of students that have depression, anxiety, some combination of both, suicidal ideation, self-harm, those mental health issues, and that's been my specialty for professional development and training that way. We all kind of work together, so everybody has somebody that is suffering symptoms of depression or anxiety. So we do a lot of consultation, and it's really, the nice thing about having the 9 of us is it's best fit. I might not be somebody that clicks with a student, and they might be better for Kevin, those types of things as well. So a lot of what I do is counseling. I do a lot of psychoeducation about what mental health really is. The difference that I find doing more and more as I've been at the high school is that difference between stress, positive stress, negative stress, and anxiety, and where those lines fall. A lot of students feel like when they work through anxiety, it means they never have stress. And part of that is really teaching them what that looks like, where anxiety comes from your body, and that really that two-part process of first you have to calm that brain down, and that brain needs to know it's not in danger, and there's a lot of coping tools to do that. And then the second piece is that rational thinking of, I am okay, I'm safe, I can get through whatever situation is going on, and those types of things. I am not a licensed therapist. I do have my master's degree in school counseling. So a lot of what I do is referrals to the community as well. We have a really wonderful partnership with Foundation 2 Mobile Crisis Outreach and Mercy Family Counseling. I also have connections to some pretty reputable therapy practices that students and families have reported that they click with, that's not too hard to get into, and that it makes a difference in their students' lives. And most importantly, the student can connect with that counselor. Foundation 2 Mobile Crisis Outreach, we actually use a lot. I would say probably on a weekly basis, we are calling Mobile Crisis Outreach for a student that's suicidal. Those are the calls that we make to parents right away. Students know that if they are, self-harming, which doesn't necessarily mean they're suicidal, we need to reach out to parents on that. If there's any type of suicidal ideation, we also connect with the parents, and we suggest that I give a call to Mobile Crisis Outreach. They report to the school within an hour, and they do that really thorough suicide assessment and make a recommendation on what steps should be next. We know a lot about suicide prevention here, but Foundation 2 are really those experts. So we work in partnership with them, and it's been really important and really critical, and I think it's saved lives for sure. The second piece of what I work with is our Mercy Family Counseling. The last couple school years, we have been able to have trained therapists from Mercy come into our schools. They're at that middle level, the intermediate level, and at the high school level. This is the first year at the high school. We have 2 therapists come in on Fridays, and we really target those students whose mental health is affecting their ability to learn. So if their attendance, their grades, their ability to stay in school because of their in classes because of their mental health, plus if they're younger and don't have that transportation, those would be ideal referrals to Mercy Family Counseling. And we've had a great partnership with them, and a lot of times anxiety comes from school, so what better place to kind of work through that and be able to support students, and they've been a real great partnership for us, and it's really helped alleviate some of that intensive work that we've had to do, because that comes here and we can do better we have lots of meetings, we do check-in meetings every week, and that's a lot of prevention for us. It's being able to talk to those students, remind them about skill practicing, what's going on in their lives to be able to kind of prevent some of those crises that could come up. And then we do a lot of crisis intervention. All 3 of us do quite a bit of that.
Jessica, you mentioned that, contacting Foundation 2 almost weekly for suicide prevention stuff. Is that across the board? Let's say someone came to Kevin, you had your poster up with, and you deal a lot with drugs and alcohol and stuff. If a student comes to you with one of those issues, is the family contacted in all of the cases, or is it just suicide?
Foundation 2 Mobile Crisis Outreach is crisis. I spoke specifically to suicide prevention, but we have definitely called Foundation 2 if there's actual just crisis in the family.
Oh, no, my question was more, if a student comes with an issue, is that issue always taken to the family?
I'll refer back to myself. If a student has a school policy violation or whatever the referral may be, that's coming from administration first, and then the family is aware of what that consequence is, and the result is going to be some school counseling. We do have some students that will come forth. If they come in on their own, that information is confidential by the federal law, and it's I can't remember I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's a federal law that we will deal with. But our goal is to reach out to the parents to be involved, because this is kind of a total family issue. It's just not an individual issue. There may be factors that the family is contributing to the student abusing substances. So we'll attempt to get them to sign a formal release and do that.
Okay, thank you.
The last piece that I want to just highlight is I do I oversee a student-led group, and it's called Mental Health Matters. It develops initiatives to increase awareness and lower stigma around mental health. It initially started as a suicide prevention week group before I came, and the students themselves felt like that was a little limiting and maybe not being as supportive to students and not preventing as much as we planned on Suicide Prevention Week. So we expanded the group last year to Mental Health Matters. This week is actually our Linn-Mar Suicide Prevention Week, and we do a lot of things around that. We have You Matter shirts that we wear 4 Wednesdays around the week, the week of Suicide Prevention Week. In the front says You Matter. It was designed by one of our students, and then in the back we do 24-hour crisis lines. And then that crisis line in the bottom left is also the crisis lines that we have on the back of student IDs. That was a student initiative. Sonia Lee, one of our seniors, came to us with that project, and we were able to put that on over 2,000 student IDs. And the piece of that is making sure kids, we can only do so much from school during school hours. A lot of times things happen nights, weekends, holidays. We are always doing that. Tell an adult, reach out. Don't wait till the next school day. If something's happening with your friend, get some advice from a crisis line and tell an adult. Those types of things. So that's really a big part of our promotion, to doing that as well.
Now it is my turn. So, like I said before, my name is Janessa Carr, and some of my supportive roles would be, I specialize in dropout prevention and attendance. And so what that might look like for me from day to day is I attend the attendance and behavioral meeting with the school counselors and admin. And they refer students to me where we might not know the root of why they're not attending, or they have low attendance and they need to be connected with some type of counselor in the building to meet with them one-on-one to kind of get to the root of why they're not attending school. That might also look like me going on home visits. The majority of my home visits I do with our family resource specialist, Sean Knighton, just because when I do come, what we're often finding is that there's like obviously there's a family component. So there's some type of need outside of just the student alone. And so that has been really nice to have Sean with me on those. Another one of my roles is just like the weekly check-ins. I'm not the only one who does that. Kevin and Jessica do that as well. But what I found in my 7 years here is that students are more successful when I meet with them once a week. Not every student is going to counseling, or therapy once a week for an entire hour. So I've seen that, not that their needs are lessened, but more of their needs are met when they have that face-to-face contact with us and they know that they're going to be meeting with us. And then like social, emotional, and familial needs as well. While I do specialize in dropout prevention and attendance, I meet with students about so many different issues, just as everyone else does here. One of the biggest components to the dropout prevention piece is just student engagement, and so I've made it just like a personal and professional goal of mine is just to engage and get as many students involved in activities as possible. So that's kind of my thing. I would say I do that through ALLO, Social Justice Hub, the Linn-Mar STEP team, the Pep Rally Committee, and then helping out with Lean On Me group as well. And so any opportunity that I have to connect with students and get them involved in the building, I'm always trying to do that. So yeah. And then I have a couple pictures here. So the picture on, I would say, the right at the top is the STEP team. There's 2 members missing from that picture. And then below that, that was when they performed at the Bowman Woods Cultural Fair. The picture in the middle is from one of the community projects that ALLO just recently did. We visited the Marion Public Library and we had a diversity fair. And so we had like 4 different book stations on different topics of surrounding diversity, and then ALLO students like read the books to the kids at the library, passed out snacks. It was just a way for them to engage with the community and kind of feel some success with a project that took a long time to plan. That's our group picture up there from last year, and then the picture where they're kind of surrounded by the table, that's the students planning our school fundraiser, which is a movie night that's gonna be coming up in the next month or so. So student engagement always equals student success for me.
All right, kind of like I said earlier, I'm the family resource specialist for the district. Although I'm stationed at the high school, I am district-wide as far as services. Just for as far as for my services, so I am the homeless liaison for our district. So under McKinney-Vento, there are certain laws and things that are for students who are considered homeless. And so I advocate for those students and those families. And some of the things that I do kind of provide as far as those services, making sure that transportation is not a barrier, and then also just working with parents as far as what are some of the needs that the family does need. And then my other portion of my job, I would say, is district-wide as far as providing resources for families in general. And I kind of just highlighted a few of those resources, but there's many more that I do provide. The biggest ones are kind of just that in food insecurity, and then mental health resources, housing resources, and basic needs and things like that.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
If we have a student who's experiencing homelessness and maybe either they individually are living in a shelter or their family is in shelter at the time, are they still able to attend Linn-Mar? And if so, how do they access transportation during that time?
Yep. And so yes, that we make sure that they do get to school. So our big component is working with our transportation department. And then if we don't have drivers for that, which has been a frustrating piece for the school year, I would say, we do help with just like local cabs, and sometimes we may even ask parents or their other like relatives. Maybe we can do some mileage reimbursement or anything like that. So. All right, I don't have any pictures. Sorry.
Does anyone have any questions?
But I would like to thank all of you for what you do for our students. I really sincerely believe that our district as a whole needs to know more exactly the services that we have. You guys are never stagnant. You're always moving forward to find something new or ways to help. And, you know, it's just like in a lot of situations, you got that work together attitude and helping each other out. And I think you need to advertise that more within the district. All these things that you went through tonight are student-based, family-based, and it's one of those things that I think our district needs to know more about that. As a senior citizen, and my son graduated from Linn-Mar, but hey, as a taxpayer, I think the patrons of the district need to know exactly what's going on from you guys and all the different avenues that you try and touch base with kids and parents, or the significant other that might be in their life. And I think, yeah, you get your one chance tonight to say the volumes of stuff that you do. That's one night. If nobody is watching on Hulu, how many of those people are not going to know and understand exactly what you guys do? And how many people you have helped? And, you know, it's just the tip of the iceberg. But like I said, you guys don't stop. You just keep going like the Energizer Bunny on trying to find new and different ways to help our kids or help our parents. But I think more people, I know I'm really doing this over and over again, but I think more people in our district really do need to know what we're doing out there, that there's more to a student in elementary and middle school and high school than reading, writing, and arithmetic. And that our goal, when we all of us sit up there and they cross the stage their senior year, now they're going to be productive citizens. What kind of citizens do we want? You know? And I know that some of those that have walked across that stage have come back, and our teachers here and different things like that, administrators here. But, you know, our school's growing. And with that comes added responsibilities that we can work with our metro and job hunting and careers and everything else like that, like building, rejuvenating the house. This is the second one we've done with Medco. But I hope in the near future that you can brag about yourself to what is offered at all levels of our district, so that people will catch on and understand exactly what you're doing. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I'm just going to echo a little bit of what Clark said, but in a different way. I think that over the last hour, you've illustrated that we have a wide variety of families that we serve, and they all come from different situations. And it's important for us to be able to recognize those different situations and the different needs of students and be able to accommodate that so that they can be successful in the classroom. And I don't think, it's not always easy to take yourself out of what your personal experience is and understand what other families in your community. It's really easy for us to assume that the next door neighbor's dealing with the same thing that we are. And that's just not the case. And I think that the amazing variety of services that you guys have gone over tonight illustrates that we have a very diverse community, and we have a very diverse student population with needs that we are meeting, and I'm incredibly proud of that. So thank you for everything that you guys do. It's incredible.
Well said, Britt.
Appreciate all you guys do as well. It's amazing, as everybody has said. And just the one connection I'll make for board members is later on in this agenda, in our legislative update, you'll hear about Senate File 53, the dropout prevention at-risk funding. And as you know, we are underfunded compared to many schools in that area. So when we hear us talk about advocating for more of those resources or options for our district, this is why, because those needs are out there and not going away, and if anything, they're increasing. So that's our role as board members, to support the staff and our kids, is to continue to push for more resources to provide more services like we heard tonight. So we'll talk more about that at the legislative update, but a direct connection to your presentation tonight. So thank you.
I have a question kind of related to that. As we think about budget and trying to be fiscally responsible and yet having such a critical service that you guys are providing, I'm curious if there's ever been discussion around licensing of our facility to be able to bill for some of the things that you're providing that are already billable services, like the substance abuse assessments and counseling and things like that. Has that ever been something that's been explored? And if so, kind of what were the outcomes of that? Okay. Yep.
And I just want to say thank you. I think you're all amazing, and we really do appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
It's amazing. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Bob with some winter assessment data.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for putting me on your agenda just to go over our winter data. And we'll specifically look at our fast data at the elementary level. We're going to do it in a couple ways. Winter literacy is one of the things that is required by the state, that we have to do a fall, winter, and spring screening with that. Mathematics is not in this particular presentation, but I'll touch on it a little bit, and then I'll also be briefing the board again once our academic year is over on year-long academic goals and what we've done. Many of these measures, as we go through. If you recall that the FAST is a formative assessment system for teachers, and that word formative should play in your mind a little bit as far as a quick assessment to look and check where students are and how they're progressing academically. The things that we use are designated as a universal screener, so we screen all our kids, or as close to possible as all kids in the reading assessment. In some of the slides you'll see that we have 99% of our population screened this winter, which is where we want it to be. But then put on a teacher hat, you have to realize this is only one piece of data that you're going to use when you're looking at student performance. We have this, we have our classroom assessments, we have the progress monitoring tools that we use. All of those things put together would give a nice picture of student achievement as it's related to literacy within our system. Through this presentation, I'm going to compare data at the district level view with AEA, our Grantwood AEA, and state comparison, and then we'll look at grade level comparisons with the same different groups. We're not going to use cohort data at mid-year because we really don't want to make programming decisions based on mid-year data. That's more of an academic, end of academic year look when we do those things. So let's dive in and take a look at our data this winter. On the screen, you can see the first bar on the left is the healthy indicator of the number of students screened, and this is case 6. But again, I'm going to just focus at the elementary level, where our goal is 95%. We're at 99, and you can see the next step down is Grantwood AEA, and the next step down is the state of Iowa and the number of students that they contain. The far right is our district, how many students are meeting the benchmark data. And then you can see we're at 75%, Grantwood AEA is at 68%, and then the state is at 66%. And again, this is just our winter term right now. This is not related to fall or spring at this time. Next, we'll look at a grade level grouping with the same comparison. Well, it's not comparison, that'll come a little bit, but this is our grade level breakdown, again, with the number of students at benchmark during this winter screening period. 6th grade is included in that. So we range from 74% starting at kindergarten to 78% of our kids at benchmark by 6th grade right now during the middle. You look at this and say, well, again, how does this compare to our area, our Grantwood area and the state level? So here was our fall district data. We are the green bar on the left. The AEA is the blue bar in the middle, and the state is the gold bar on the outside. So you can see that's our kindergarten cohort, our 1st grade, and then up through 4th grade. So that's where we started this academic year with our first fall screener, and this is how we've progressed to our winter screener. Again, kindergarten on the left, 4th grade on the furthest right. I don't want to toggle back and forth between the different bars to make you motion sick or anything like that. We started the fall at 74%, and that's where we're at right now in the winter. 1st grade, we started at 66%, and we're at 65 now. 2nd grade, we're at 71, and we're currently at 74 in the winter. 3rd grade, we're at 75, and we're at 74 now in the winter. And then at 4th grade, we're 76, and now we're at 79% proficient. So that's to be expected a little. Sometimes there's an ebb and flow to our curriculum, and that sometimes our curriculum doesn't exactly match what the screener is testing at that exact moment. That's why we really like that end of year comparison for those things. And so you say, well, okay, we've screened 99% of our kids, now what? Well, that really becomes a building grade level team issue, and what they do with it, they take that data, get into their PLCs or grade level teams, they look at growth. And one of the nice things about these screeners, they're calibrated to show even small increments of growth. So even if I was non-proficient, I might grow 10 points on that screener, and that's important to know where the kids are growing. They also look at the students moving close to proficiency. I may have been 20 points away, but now I'm 5 points away. That's great growth, but yet in the report, I would still be non-proficient. And then again, we look at the students maintaining proficiency, and all of this with the classroom data and the different anecdotal data that the teacher has, they can use that to adjust the interventions that that child may receive if they are not proficient. Or it may be used to adjust the instruction if the child is proficient. So it's not like we take the screener, it gets put away on a shelf, nothing happens with it. I can guarantee you that grade level teams go through this and adjust their instruction appropriately. Now, moving ahead, you might say, well, what are the next steps? The next step is to calibrate all of this data in an end-of-year look, and then we can start looking at cohort data then also. Like, how did our kindergartners perform last year? How are they performing as first graders this year? And start looking at the impact that our teaching and learning process are having on our students and their academic goals. I know that I mentioned math a little bit, and I'll just follow up with a little bit here. For our mathematics, our K1 students take early math, which is, of course, beginning mathematical concepts and things like that, cardinality. Our second and third graders take automaticity, which deals more with fact fluency, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and that really ties really nicely to some of the professional learning that our teachers are receiving right now on fact fluency, the Graham-Fletcher work that our math strategists are developing with our teachers. So that's a really nice match at that level. And then our fourth graders would take the CAP as far as the assessment is concerned, and that stands for content, application, and process. And they like that because it's really aligned to the standards that they have identified as priority standards within the illustrative math curriculum. I know the question might be, well, how are they performing? I'm sorry I don't have a slide for that. I did want to put an additional slide in. Right now, as a district, 74% of our kids are proficient mathematically. Again, the comparison to Grant Wood AEA would be 63, and then the state of Iowa would be 65%. If we want to go grade level at benchmark right now, our kindergartners, we have 81% of our kindergartners at benchmark, 76% of our first graders, 68% of our second graders, 60% of our third graders, but 77% of our fourth graders, and at the intermediate level, it's 80% for our fifth graders and 79% for our sixth graders. So I'll include those numbers. I'll send them to Shannon. He can put them in the memo, and I can provide a little more background for that rather than just a brief overview. But really, our mid-year data is just a dipstick measurement. How are we doing? What can we do to keep that growth going for our students? And what changes in instruction or support can we give to our students to make sure that they continue to grow? We don't like students staying stagnant, and we don't like them to stay stagnant very long. And again, this is just another piece of data that allows us to make those instructional decisions as we move through the academic year. Our spring screening window usually is at the end of April into halfway through May. And then again, we can correlate our FAST data with our ISASP data with our third and fourth graders too. Is it telling us the same thing? Are we putting the puzzle together in the right way to match what this student can do in the area of literacy and mathematics? Again, just a brief overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Can you talk about the interventions process at the elementary level? I know that last year we had math interventions, and it's my understanding that that has now been taken away from the schedule for math, but we still have it for reading. Can you talk about how we're approaching those interventions for students that need that extra attention?
Absolutely. We actually have developed a flow chart that's housed in All Things Elementary that all our elementary teachers have access to. And it's a step-by-step process of kids that are par or persistently at risk, or if they're not proficient, it gives you the diagnostic tools that you can use to further diagnose where they're at, and then the resources as far as these are the tools that we will use to instruct our kids and then monitor them also. And all of our teachers have access to that, so it's not guesswork necessarily. But then we have to put in that layered effect, because what I do as a classroom teacher, I really want to make sure if my child is receiving reading support or has an IEP, those things align. And so that's the communication that happens within that building team to make sure that if Bob's getting an intervention in the classroom, the intervention that he receives with his reading teacher falls in line with that, so we're addressing the same skills. And if I've double dipped through a student service support teacher, that those are in line also. So it's clearly delineated as far as the steps that you take. And then we always have our director Carla available as well as the people that work with those students on a daily basis. So I can't name it right off my head, the flow chart. I don't have that memorized, but I know there's a very clearly defined purpose for those interventions and the tools we should be using.
How are math interventions happening, though, now that there's not math intervention time?
That's one of our struggles this year. And the elementary level, we have 75-minute intervention period, a 75-minute content period for mathematics. We're finding most of the illustrative lessons take around 60 minutes. So that 15-minute time, there is some intervention in there. Is it as systematic as it once was? No, but that's something that as we work through the materials and as the math coaches provide more assistance to teachers with their knowledge of tools and things that they could use with their students in there, those are some things that we're constantly working on. Do we have it perfect? No, we do not have it perfect.
When you say math coach, who do you mean?
The math strategist, math strategist.
No, I just want to clarify,
Yep.
so we're not talking about the instructional coaches, we're talking about
Yep.
the math strategists
Yes.
helping the teachers
Yep.
figure out how to teach this and do the interventions in the regular math block.
Yep, and I've talked a little bit about the fluency aspect for second and third graders. A lot of our work right now centers on fact fluency, and they've received professional learning around Graham Fletcher's work with how to develop facts and things like that. So right now, I know today there was a fact fluency workshop offered before school, and I think it's going to be tomorrow and Thursday also for those teachers. So they have, it's not, here's the kit, go at it. Here's the kit, here's some things you should be working on. These are the things you need to do with the student when they have these issues.
Okay. Is there any discussion of bringing math intervention time back?
Yes, there is. Actually, we just met. The elementary principals meet weekly, once a month by themselves, and then Carla and other directors meet with them, and that was part of our conversation, actually, this last meeting. The value of intervention time. Did we move students like we wanted to when we did have that designated intervention time? Are we doing our results about the same where we're at right now? Or is there something else that we need to look at to move students forward that are having difficulties in either literacy or mathematics?
Let other people ask questions now. I'm sorry. Anybody else?
No.
Bob mentioned the math data. We were so locked in on the required literacy piece, didn't even think about the math data. So we will add that for you. So I will include that in your memo so you have the exact same information on math as you do literacy. So my apologies for that.
Yeah, I'm just interested in seeing at the end of the year how things worked out. So looking forward to that, seeing that.
Yeah, I am too. I can't wait to see what our results are. I think it's very promising right now with where we're at mid-year. So
Thank you.
thank you.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
All right, up next, looks like the CTE committee met. You guys want to give a report back?
I attended the meeting, it was last week. It was actually a very interesting meeting. We obviously went through, the Perkins dollars and stuff and where we're at with that, but we also, they also brought in some business and industry leaders to just talk about desired labor skills, what's missing, what types of things should we be looking at going forward. Excuse me. And they kind of broke it down into three things: desired labor skills, noted shortfalls seen in some new hires, and skills, attitudes, and behaviors needed to be developed in high school. And what was interesting is there were four people from business and industry that presented. It was across the board the same. Didn't matter what we were talking about, the desired skills, the shortfalls, or what needed to be developed in high school. It was all the same. It was all soft skills. Nick Glue with Medco had just happened to attend something at Kirkwood where they were talking about a lot of the same things, and had a really nice handout of, they did a large survey of businesses in Cedar Rapids, Marion area of, I believe the number was 167 businesses, and what they're seeing, and it was covering all industry, healthcare, manufacturing, you name it, it was there. But across the board, it was all the soft skills of work ethic, communication, being able to work independently. What else we got here? Professional communication, those sorts of things. They're really struggling now, the businesses, as he was presenting, with finding hires that have those soft skills, and they're actually looking more towards less education and more experience, or a lot of the jobs that are out there, 46% of the businesses surveyed require a high school diploma, where only 16% are requiring four-year degrees. And from what they were talking about is there has been a large shift in what is needed locally in the community, and with talking with some of the, the educators in the CTE area, some of the questions were, well, how do we be able to bring in some of these soft skills and facilitate that learning into our curriculum? And they think that both the educators and the business leaders that were there think that's going to be a very important part of preparing students after high school. So again, it was a really interesting meeting. There was a lot of information back and forth, but that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, it is interesting how the statistics keep changing. It's 68% of our jobs in the workforce in general need something beyond high school, but only about 30% are that four-year degree. And so you've got a lot of wiggle room in there of registered apprenticeship, 2-year, that kind of thing. So.
I like the fact that you brought up, Matt, the soft skills, that people kind of ignore because they're thinking of their academics, where have you finished? But those soft skills, like you said, are big indicators on how you get along with bosses and the people that you work for and stuff like that. I think sometimes that gets really overlooked. So I'm glad that was pointed out. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Right. So I'm up next with Marion City Council, and make it quick. Nothing pertained to Linn-Mar on the agenda.
So we had a DEI committee meeting last Monday. It was really good, focused on some subcommittee work now, where smaller groups are going to take the data from the survey that students completed and take it to a group of students, take it to a group of parents, present that data and kind of get some feedback. And the idea is that that those on the DEI committee really wouldn't be, they have a couple of prompt questions just to get on people going, but they don't really interact. They really want to see what the reaction, what the thoughts, what the questions are from those small groups, and kind of bring that back to the committee and parse out what all that means. So it seems like we're really moving forward. We're getting some momentum.
What is the goal after the student and parent groups give you feedback? What's the next step with the committee?
Once we have our feedback. So really it's, we'll meet again after spring break and try to just synthesize the data and information that we have, and if that turns into strategic plan goals, that's fine. If we need to meet with more groups, that's maybe a next step. So the committee's kind of got to do that legwork first before we determine where we go with that.
Makes sense.
I think too, I'd just like to add that the idea is to have some community buy-in to allow people to feel like they've had time to engage with that data and to share thoughts about that data with the committees, the subcommittees. And I think we bring that back, and based upon what that feedback was from the community, we can make some plans for next steps.
Any questions for Rachel or Nathan? Up next, we got our stakeholder survey report back, and we have this reflection survey that Linn-Mar would like us to kind of give some guidance on. So there's a copy of the stakeholder survey report at your tables. We've had it, if you guys have any thoughts, but just immediate or initial reflections on any of the feedback that was received, what your reactions are, and then kind of prioritize anything that stands out that we want to share with Linn-Mar to share with potential candidates.
I think there was a tremendous amount of positive feedback that made me feel really good about where the district is and where it's been and where it's heading. I thought we got some good, I think we got some good feedback on things to think about, areas of growth, but I thought I was really pleased that people are happy with the district and where it's going.
One area for me that will not be surprising, and I can't read this because I'm going blind, is both under strengths and under challenges was communication. And it makes me feel happy that we're getting feedback that says communication has improved, because that's something we've been working on, but I also think it's important to note that there's still room for improvement. So for me, if I'm reflecting on this as being both a strength and an area of challenge, you know, something that I would like to see is someone who has communication skills or at least recognizes the need for different ways of communicating, because you know, we have clear communication in certain areas, and then we have a request for better communication internally or better communication on specific topics. So for me, if I'm reflecting, one of the things I'm going to pull out is the communication aspect.
I would say of everything that we saw, I agree with you on that's what probably caught my eye the most was communication as a strength and a weakness. So obviously there's something there that needs to be looked at, I think. So I agree with you.
Other reflections?
I think that the strengths and challenges that were identified from the stakeholders were very similar to when we got together as a board and when the cabinet got together and we were identifying during our strategic planning process internally what we felt were strengths and challenges of the district. So I felt that was reassuring that we were on the right track with our own internal perspectives, that we weren't completely off base. So this was just another piece of affirmation that the strategic plan is moving in the right direction and that our leadership that we'll be bringing in, that we need to be guiding us on that strategic plan, and that our community understands us and sees all the different aspects of the district. So.
Do we know, are we going to, much like the strategic planning survey, will we be getting the raw data for this as well? Has that been brought up or asked?
I have not asked, but I will. I can, or well, Dave, can you ask, since you're our point contact? So another thing that sticks out to me is under strengths, there are a lot of comments about strong and effective staff, strong teachers, that our staff do a good job of communication, the teachers care, and under the desired qualifications and skills, recruits, hires, supports, develops, retains effective staff. So I think it's really important to continue that process that we have of seeking the best and creating that environment that keeps the best. So that's something that it also sticks out to me.
I was looking through the advice. One of the things that kept sticking out was be willing and able and ready to stand up for what's best for kids, stand up for what's best for teachers, stand up what's best for kids, stand up for what's best for teachers. And so I think that's important to know that there's a lot of people thinking and recognizing that this is a position that is going to need to have some thick skin and do a lot of that, be in that hard position a lot of times where they're going to have to be the advocate and sometimes the unpopular voice for things that, and times when we're doing budget cuts or in times where there's differences of opinions of how things are going, that they've got to be willing and able to stand true to their core of what they believe is what's best for kids and teachers in our district.
Everything you've all said, I mean, I could say the same themes again, but the themes, like you said, the communication on both ways seems to stick out. Also that to continue to focus on student achievement and continuing to have us be the best we can be. Teacher support, to support teachers, but also to reflect on what they're doing well and help them continue, give strong caring for the administration and the people who are trying to bring everything together. I also thought it was important for us to acknowledge that, yes, that we did have some strengths, but that there were some things we needed to work on, and communication was one of those things. So really have not said anything different than what you've said, but I feel the same kinds of things. From what I looked through, I kept writing down tidbits, and they all came out pretty much as you stated. So.
I will also say the consistent theme of the challenges page, in addition to communication, is this acknowledgement of the demographics of our district changing and diversity focus and addressing diversity with hiring, competitive pay, acknowledging how we're looking at those things and addressing those things. So that's.
Melissa put it really well when she said that it seems like the feedback from the community is very similar to the feedback that we were able to gather during the strategic planning process, and it makes me really excited knowing that we're moving in the right direction with that strategic planning process.
It's like the fact that it points out that, yeah, there's always going to be something that can affect our district, but we're still going to delve into what those points are and move our district forward. And I think that that's a big key. Yeah, there's going to be some bumps in there, staff and like Melissa was talking about, possibility of cuts and that type of thing. But, basically when you give out the strengths that this survey pointed out, we've got a good baseline. We're not going backwards, we're moving forwards, and I think that's a key point. Like Matt and Britt, you were talking about communication. With technology and the other streams that we have, that is something that we always have to be aware of, always how we can improve it. And, I think that is a key for everybody from seniors in our district to property owners to parents to our students, our businesses in our community. I think we need to make sure that we're all on the same page.
So if I can attempt to summarize into 4 key qualifications. Communication strengths and leadership, focus on student achievement and experience, support teachers, retain and recruit high quality, and then leadership through the strategic plan, doing what's best for students. Is that a good summation that everyone can agree on? We'll get to talk about it again, obviously, before our next work session, but that will give some areas of feedback to Linn-Mar as they're still collecting and talking with applicants. All right. Legislative update. The three of us had fun last week. We went to Day on the Hill on Tuesday. It was a long day, but I thought it was really productive. We were able to meet with 5 of our 9 representatives, and that sounds crazy that we have 9 now. But we did. We packed 5 conversations in the afternoon. The morning we spent at the Botanical Center, which I will admit I could have just stayed in that warm tropical area all day because it rained. But we had a nice overview from ISB on bills that we're going through and areas of focus that related to the priorities we had set. We all had copies of our board priorities to talk about. And I found the morning session really, they went over the state budget and they went over different bills and talked about the different talking points and the angles that, legislators were coming from with their bills. And so I find that fascinating and really helpful when you're preparing to go have these conversations. You guys can jump in anytime.
Okay, I will jump. Not very high. No, the morning session, I like. It's comforting to know that there's other districts that are thinking along the same lines that we are. That is encouraging. We also know that, they're feeling some of the same constraints that we are. And that was invigorating, and we got to talk to some of those people. The afternoon session, I think, and you mentioned it, that we have 9 that we would have liked to have talked to. I think that even surprised some of the legislators that we did get to talk to, just how many people within our district, like one young gentleman, he's in a district but 2 parts of his district are Linn-Mar kids and Linn-Mar students. So it was interesting from that standpoint. What kind of impressed me over previous times that I've gone, and this is going to sound maybe silly, is they actually had eye contact with us. They actually took the time to sit down or stand, as in most cases, because it was just a crowded place that day, and listen to us. Things that they weren't aware of, but Britt had the numbers down as to what number it was on the legislative scheme of things, and they would actually get out and write down things that they weren't aware of themselves that coming in the near future, and was able to tell us that the number of that legislative piece has changed. I don't know why they changed numbers, but they did, but they were able to tell us that. But yeah, it was very interesting how they addressed our concerns and listened, and we had, I felt that it was extremely productive. It was a little exhausting by the time we got back, but it was well worth our time going down. I think we made our points across to them, and they listened. How they vote, as well as I do. We don't know. I'm sure some of them didn't even know. But I don't think we could have had a better opportunity to do that, for them to listen. And like I said, a big eye contact person, and they were able to help us, and they understood our concerns, and I think that's the important part.
With the 5 that we were able to talk to, I think Janessa had on the screen earlier, student engagement equals student success. And I felt the same way with our legislators. Legislative engagement equals legislative success. And they were very engaged in our conversations. They listened, shared their perspective on some things. It was also a good reminder for me that we need the first funnel deadline to get here, which is next Friday, March 3rd, because there's just so many bills being floated out there, they couldn't even keep track of them all. Several bills we brought to their attention, they didn't have any idea about them because there's just so many. But they're quick to respond, quick to look into those, and just really good conversations on both sides, I thought, too. So very much a day worth our time. And the key areas the IASB was focusing on as organization was on staff shortage across the state and all educators, and then full day funding for preschool were the two statewide initiatives they were pushing. So we had conversations with legislators on those as well as our own priorities as well. So busy, crazy day, like everybody said, but very well worth the time to go down there and connect on a personal level, besides just being via email. So.
Areas we touched on in addition to preschool, and so with teachers, there's several bills out there, and we talked about there's a bill that would allow us to pay for student teaching. So we said we'd be in favor of that, depending on how the funding works out. But we like the idea of paying our student teachers if we're able to. But then we talked about the dangers of continuing to lower teacher certification levels, or doing only online courses and not having them do any student teaching or face-to-face instruction before being put into a classroom. So we shared kind of some concerns there about content specializations and things. We talked about dropout prevention. We mentioned that that did pass out of committee on a 3-0 vote. So I think that's one step further than it made last year. So yay. We did talk about the Senate study bill that includes ending the Pearl levy and what that would do to our district and our community, because we do a lot of partnerships with Marion and shared outdoor facilities. So we did share kind of that, and Dave sent a nice email before we got down there. So they were all like, oh yes, we got an email from your CFO, and that was really helpful.
They actually read your email, Dave.
They did.
There
you go. So,
that was good.
but yeah, so it was a good day, and I always find that beneficial. And
I want to say thank you to you three for going and representing us. I've done that many times, and I could not this year. And so I'm glad that you were there and were able to talk to people. I think it's important for them to know that we care. So.
Just one other thing, that dropout prevention thing, I really like, because we're at 2.5. And they're thinking of increasing that. We want to eventually get to 5, but they're doing it
like everyone
in
else.
Increments. So hopefully that goes through, and because that's going to really help us on the dropout prevention, I think.
And ISB shared like their role and how they share information, and they've got a map that shows all the districts and how many are at the 5% and how many more are somewhere between the 2.5 to 4. And so they're sharing that with the committee members and kind of backing us up, where we give local specific information and they say, here's what it would do a statewide impact. So I think that's helpful too, to have those multiple conversations happening around those bills. But yeah, I would echo Shannon that next week is the final deadline, and things that haven't made it out of committee yet go away for a little while, and we kind of can see where things fall. So it gives you can start focusing on a few things instead of like the 200 bills that are currently open.
I think I sent out to everybody today the updated link. We updated it into a Google Doc or a Google Sheet instead of the Excel sheet. So you should have that. And when the funnel when we get past the funnel, we'll go in and update that with which ones made it through the funnel and which ones didn't, so we know which ones are dead. And
you can write that dead.
Well, at least till
there's
next
still
session.
backdoor ways to get them
Yeah,
in.
they can. They're open for two sessions. So dead
And
this
for
session.
the year. How about
Yeah.
that?
So, but yeah, that's really the only update. Not a lot has moved. Any other questions?
I looked at that Google document. It's amazing. So thank you for all that work. I was reading through it going, really?
Melissa set that up.
That was
Melissa.
cool. Thank you.
I mean, so, all right. Shannon?
A couple quick updates. We'll start with snow day, which is getting to be old, as you heard several times today, that for some reason Wednesdays and
Announcing Wednesday
Thursdays
already?
are no fun. And this sounds like that's patterns happening again this week, so hopefully it'll stay north of us, but we will see. After last week, we have just over 2 days of time built into our school calendar, so that number, which we felt pretty good about 2 or 3 weeks ago, is starting to dwindle a little bit. So hopefully this week we can avoid too much of that. So a couple other recognitions that did not make the update that you have in your packet as well. From over the weekend, a busy weekend for Linn-Mar across the board. State wrestling, our wrestlers did fantastic, ended up getting 4th overall. 4 individuals got to the finals. Tate and Kay Notkeborn, Braden Park, and Grant Crest, so congratulations to all of them. And then Malik DeBow placed 5th as well, so very successful tournament for them. Girls basketball played on Saturday as well, and they won and will advance now to play Ankeny Centennial on Tuesday. Boys basketball pro season starts in about 9 minutes, I think, across the parking lot in their game versus Iowa City Liberty. And then today we had our bowling state tournament was today. Congratulations to Calix Carpenter, came in 9th overall with a 3-game total of 672. And Boston Stoffel finished 21st with a 3-game total of 605. I cannot probably even do half of that, so well done to those individuals. So a busy weekend as our winter sports start to wrap up and lots of fun things happening, exciting times across the board. Then I want to congratulate Lisa Breitfelder on being named as the shared superintendent of Central City and Northland School Districts starting next school year. So our loss is there again. Congratulations. Lisa, I was talking last week, the weather piece is one that she's really excited about doing, so I sent her this special link that we all have as superintendents, and it's overwhelming, so it's fun to look at.
Gee, thanks.
Yep. That's how it is, getting up at 3:30 in the morning.
I was going to say,
to go
those
out and
3
check
a.m.
the
drives
road.
through the snow should be super fun.
The older you get, that just feels like normal time to get up, so it's okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Shannon? Moving on to unfinished business.
Motion to approve the substantial completion of the Excelsior parking lot project and issue final payment for a total of $72,743.37 to Rathy Construction Company.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Clark. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right. Under new business, up first we have the first reading of our policy recommendations.
Make a motion to approve the first reading of the policy recommendations as presented.
Second.
A motion by Rachel and a second by Saunders. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, most of it looks pretty standard, with the exception of policy 504 under student health services. Can I get a little information on what that is? Reading it, I think I know what it is, but where it came from and what problem are we solving here?
Which one?
Under 504, student health services.
The addition is that we are not administering invasive physical examinations or health screenings except in emergency care situations. Believe this was an IASB.
Correct. If I remember right, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, was this one part of the legislative change a year ago at last legislative session to update as well? And then ISB's recommendations came out of that new law. Correct me if I'm right on that one. I can't remember if that was part of that healthcare plan
Yeah, that
changes or
came
if that
straight
was
from the
separate.
legislation, so just making sure, like, just the protection of there's no invasive care that can happen unless it's a severe emergency.
Well, that's where my concern comes in. It says, it calls out specifically, except in emergent care situations, who decides what's an emergent care situation?
I think the first responders that are dealing with that at that time would have to determine is that serious injury or harm of a student, event medical attention is not provided. I think that would be something our in that case, our nurses or our emergency staff on site would have to make that determination based on their expertise.
So, because it says right in it, emergent care situations include the need to screen a student or others for symptoms or exposures during an outbreak or public health event of concern as designated by the Department of Public Health. So, again, when the Department of Public Health puts something out that says we're in a heightened risk of something, who decides that we're in an emergent care situation in that situation?
Whatever the guidance would be from public health at that time, if there's just, it's hard to say, talk hypothetically with that, I guess, because I don't know exactly what that situation would be. But in
My
that
concern
situation,
with it is that we've been through this. So my concern is that the Department of Public Health or another entity, whatever it is, public, private, says we are in this situation, we recommend this. And we take this policy to run with that, saying, well, we're in an emergent care situation and we're going to do this. I think that needs to be much more clearly defined on what an emergent care situation is, who defines it, and because it also says with an emergent care situation, then invasive physical examination can be performed, including incision, insertion, or injection into the body. So I think this needs to be much more clearly defined on what those terms mean, who makes the determination of what they are, and what can and cannot be done. I would like to see if any of this invasive physical examination or anything like that, I would like it defined on where the authority of anyone in the school district has to do that and when.
things I would just comment on right away and open up to other board members for thoughts, but this is the guidance from Iowa Association of School Boards legal guidance they give us. So this is not something we crafted or we created. This is from a authority of legal perspective on that. The second piece is you're reading the bullet points, but if you go above that, it's very clearly stated the district will not administer invasive physical health examinations or health screenings of a student that are not required by state or federal law without first obtaining the written consent of the student's parent or guardian.
Right, except in the emergent care situation.
Correct, but the big piece of that is will not administer. So the emergency care situation, that's the legal guidance we've received on what that would be. So when you ask for more clarification, I don't know who we would go to or how we would take more ownership of that versus the legal perspective on what that interprets. But I'm open to others' thoughts on that as well.
I would just add that I think it's difficult to write policy that specifies every potential thing that might come up. And I think that we always follow state and federal law. So I don't have concerns that that somebody who's not designated to make that kind of call would be making that kind of call.
I hear what you're saying. I do.
Could you share give me an example of a specific concern?
That's what I'm trying to get. I would like an example of when would this emergent care situation give us the authority to do some of these things, because it says we can.
I think it's that,
we can.
I guess I would kick it back to you once again and say, like, give me an example of something you would be concerned about.
My concern is, again, what we went through in the past with other things like this is the...
Something specifically?
Masking, quarantining, all of those things through COVID. So
those were all of those.
Can I please finish what I was saying? So, because you asked. So when those things happened, what happened was the CDC, the Iowa Department of Public Health, you name it, whatever entity you choose, put out guidance for recommendations. We took those recommendations and implemented them without the authority to do so. And we kept saying that we are being told by the CDC, we are being told by the Iowa Department of Health that we have to. We didn't have to. I have emails from Linn County Public Health when I asked them, are we required to do these things? And it was no, we are recommending them. So I want this to be more clear so we're not having those big arguments and fights again. And it should be clear, because policies like this is where lawsuits happen and come from.
You have suggested wording what that would look like?
I would like to have an opinion on my question on who decides what emergent care situation is and who defines it.
I would
That is a
like to
big help.
add that we had authority to do everything that we did. We never acted outside of our authority during the pandemic, ever.
I want to reference back to what Shannon said when you first asked who makes that decision or that determination. He said our nurses or the emergency care, the first responders who would be responding to said incident. Those are the trained individuals that would make that decision, not district, like not teachers, not administrators, but the professional first responders that come to whatever emerging situation is occurring.
Here's my concern with
Our
that
nursing
specifically.
staff.
So emergent care, to me, maybe I don't know what emergent care is or emergency care situations, but it's an emergency. My fear in this is we're going to have something similar to COVID again, and now we're going to want to be doing all of these screenings of students and anyone entering buildings because someone decided that it was an emergent care situation when that is not an emergency. That is the clarification I think we need to get here.
Okay, but
This says that we would act only in concert with state and federal law.
Except
So-
in emergent care situations.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, is that it says that in emergent situations that.
It doesn't say that we can act outside of the law.
But it says that
It
we.
actually does,
It doesn't
Rachel.
say that we won't act outside of the law, but it also doesn't say that we will only do things that are required by state and federal. And I think maybe that's what I'm hearing is the concern, is that there's a difference between only doing things that are required by state and federal law versus doing things that aren't required, but that we want to do because the CDC is recommending that we do those. And that's traditionally what we as a district have decided. And as a board, we have said we're going to follow the CDC's recommendations because that's what we believe is best.
But wasn't that covered, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, wasn't that covered under our Return to Learn plan? So something separately from like this policy? Like we weren't following this policy when we were making those decisions. We were doing that under the guidance of the health department and codifying that within the Return to Learn plan.
Yeah, our return to learn plan was required, but we still had to follow all state and federal laws as part of that, correct?
so here's my thought. I think it's really difficult. Emergent care situations mean a sudden or unforeseen occurrence. It is really difficult to put in writing what a sudden or unforeseen occurrence could be. However, we can pull policy 504, ask legal what the law is defining as an emergency care situation, and come back with that. Because this is legislated, this is their verbiage, this is the legal interpretation of the law that was passed by the legislature, so let's see what they say it means. And if this is all the clarification they can provide, we can't add to the law. So that's my suggestion.
I don't think we should pull it. That's my suggestion. I'm just one person, but I don't think we should pull it.
I technically can't make a motion here, but that was my suggestion.
We have a motion and a second on the
Yeah,
table
we would have to
already.
amend.
Yeah, we would have to amend it.
A motion to amend, to remove 504 until we get legal clarification on what all of these terms mean and who can determine an emergent care situation.
I have one other policy that I'd like to just add or have some discussion on, if that's okay.
We need to.
Yeah, we need to have the amendment
Yeah,
first.
finish this motion.
We have a second to Matt's motion to pull 504 for further clarification from legal.
I'll give a second because I think we just need to make sure that everyone understands what's going on. And if it comes back that there's no more explanation that can be given, then there's no more explanation that can be given.
This is the first reading. So.
Okay. Melissa?
So I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we need to vote.
We need to vote. All those in favor of sending 504 for further legal clarification?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. We will pull 504 from the vote tonight and get further legal clarification. Melissa?
I have a question regarding the substance use policy.
Can I ask a procedural question? If we just voted to pull that, are we now need to make a new motion to
See what Melissa's thing is and then only do it once. Because if she wants to pull something, then let's only revise it once. So let's finish the discussion and then we'll amend.
Okay.
What number is it?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so it's policy. Sorry. Policy.
2.3.
502.3. So the last paragraph I feel is confusing. And the reason is that the first sentence says violation of this policy by students will result in disciplinary action, including suspension or expulsion, and a referral for substance use evaluation by a licensed substance abuse professional. And then later at the end of the paragraph, it says, if a student fails to satisfactorily complete such a program, they may also be subject to discipline, including suspension or expulsion. So I'm trying to figure out what the policy is really trying to say. Is it saying that if a student has a substance use violation, that they would be referred for a substance use evaluation and then recommendations related to that, and then if they don't comply with those recommendations, then they would be subject to further disciplinary action?
That's what our current good conduct policy at the high school says.
Okay.
So if we would change that, we would need to then adjust that procedure at the high school.
I think that first sentence needs to be revised then, because it says that violations of this policy by students will result in disciplinary action. And a referral for a substance use policy, a referral for an assessment is not
Oxford comma there after
Yeah.
expulsion?
or maybe just saying like violation of this policy by students may result in disciplinary action up to and including suspension or expulsion. All students will receive a referral for substance use evaluation by a licensed substance use disorder professional if the student fails to satisfactorily complete blah, 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 blah.
Discipline is currently not a may, though the current discipline is a will.
So they're getting both. They're getting a referral, but they're also getting discipline regardless?
Yes.
But discipline doesn't necessarily mean suspension or expulsion. There's that flow chart that they talked about. So it could be in school.
Are we able to make very minor changes to this? One thing that I might change is just the language used with substance abuse. That language has changed in the professional community. That is now considered substance use. I forgot about that. I think we can make that very subtle change, but I think important. I think language is important. And then I wonder if will result in disciplinary action up to and including, and then a semicolon after expulsion, and then a referral.
So referral is part of the process, but it's really not part of the disciplinary record. But it's
Personal opinion, and take or leave it, but my personal and professional opinion is that first offense violation for a substance use disorder or substance use issue should not result in discipline, because you're disciplining a child for what may be a medical situation.
That's in the flexibility of the student assistance counselors.
You're
and-
saying that it will result in disciplinary action.
But disciplinary action has a lot of different, like, it means some action is going to take place, and then there's a variety of things on that list. It doesn't necessarily mean expulsion, suspension, but something's going to happen. There's going to be a conversation, and then the referral is the second part of that. But I'm not comfortable with saying we're not going to do anything the first time just because it's the first time.
What about instead of disciplinary, like interventional action?
Intervention, because the intervention in
that
in
could
best
include-
practice would be the referral
Right.
for support.
That
to
could
their-
include, though, suspension or expulsion, depending on the situation.
should.
Right? But maybe the use of interventional action instead of disciplinary action, because disciplinary, I think what you're getting at
There's a
is it
negative
denotes
connotation with that.
a punitive thing as opposed to.
But it is an illegal act.
I was going to say,
that our
okay,
school has to
we just had
follow.
a great presentation that talked about there's a whole segment of services we offer when a policy is violated, and how we help those students through that process while also dealing with the fact that they violated the policy and broke the law. And I think that we have to be very careful about how we're talking about, I mean, if a law is broken, we have to deal with the law being broken and help students in the best way possible to get through that. And so I would disagree with changing the language.
I'm fine with the small changes that I suggested.
I'm okay with the up to and including, and
Putting a semicolon.
The semicolon. And then you wanted to say use.
Substance use evaluation
Okay.
by a licensed substance use professional.
That's just the professional
That's just the
change.
professional language that they're using now. And then in the next sentence, complete a substance use assistance or rehabilitation program.
Is everyone okay with those?
So say that one more time of what the.
Violation of this policy by students will result in disciplinary action up to and including suspension or expulsion, semicolon, and a referral to a substance use evaluation by a licensed substance use professional. Students who violate the terms of this policy may also be required to satisfactorily complete a substance use assistance or rehabilitation program.
I'm good with that.
I don't like it. I don't feel it's best practice because you're punishing somebody for a symptom of a disease, potentially. So I don't feel comfortable with that. So I'll just make that known.
Anyone else have concerns or objections to making those slight adjustments to the final paragraph? Matt? Clark? No?
Excuse me.
No. All right. Are there any other policies that anyone would like to discuss on the list? Rachel, are you willing to amend your motion to exclude policy 504? Can you do that, please?
Am I willing to?
Can you rescind your previous motion to include the agreed upon removal of 504?
Okay. And do you want me to include this amendment as well?
Yes, and then the
All right.
changes as discussed for policy 502.3.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion to remove policy 504 and to amend 502.3 with the language as discussed.
Do I have a second, Sandra? Okay. So we have a motion by Rachel and a second by Sandra that amends the previous motion. We will be tabling policy 504 and sending it back for further legal guidance. And we are adjusting policy 502.3 to reflect the discussed changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I took notes in case you didn't.
I think.
All right, open enrollment requests.
Make a motion to approve the open enrollment request as presented.
Okay.
Motion by Rachel and a second by Clark. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Clark and a second by Melissa. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have the calendar, nope. Yep, calendar's up next. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, we all got the ISB Summit on Student Success. I think you might have gotten it in the mail. I got it in the mail. If you didn't, we'll have Shannon send out information to everybody. It is a summit in April, and if anyone would like to attend, please let us know.
What day?
It is April 27th and 28th in Ankeny. So it's, there's intensive workshops, education sessions, and then networking. And the focus is student success is at the forefront for every board member in Iowa. A commonly recurring reason for board service mentioned by many individuals is that it's all about the students. So they're going to have keynote speakers on achievement gaps, education sociologist and achievement gap specialist, and then the national director of partnerships from Big Picture Learning, and then sessions on moving from vision to reality, meeting and reading your goals, addressing essential needs through career tech exploration, integrated computer science, addressing disproportionality, magnet schools, different choices within public schools. Workshops will go into poverty simulations, real world learning. So I think that it would be nice if some of us could attend. So just kind of review it. We'll send out some information, and
If you're interested, let Gayla know, and she can get everybody set up and registered.
and you will earn certification credit if you attend. So
This is in
Ankeny. It's on the DMAC campus in their FFA center.
I have a question for you. You mentioned having us do some board learning, and that, is that this, I keep getting something on, it asked me to do some assignment or something else, and I'm going, I didn't know if you
That's not for
signed me
me.
up for something that I
No.
didn't know about.
No,
Okay,
That's
so
probably
then I will.
your technology training for security.
I haven't done. I have. I held off on sending out the board workshop that we talked about until we get through all the superintendent stuff.
Please.
You know,
that would be
so we can all
awesome.
focus on one kind of thing at a time.
Yeah. Lots
But
of
no,
things
I did not
going on.
assign you anything. So if
Okay,
you're getting
so I'm
emails
like-
with homework, it's not from me.
I mean, I didn't even have time necessarily to text you and say, did you assign me to do something?
I did not.
So, okay.
Maybe
thank you.
talk to Jerry and see if she's assigned you something to do.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
But
what that
thank
is.
you so much. Okay, so I can, take
Yep.
care of that.
So calendar, we have a Bowman Woods visit next Thursday. Matt, you still good to do city council on the 23rd?
Yep.
next Thursday or this Thursday?
This Thursday.
It's this upcoming Thursday.
I don't know what day it is, I'm sorry.
You got me confused.
Today's the 20th. Okay, so we have a board visit this Thursday. Matt, you've got city council this Thursday. We have the special board session on Friday for about 15 minutes to approve the bond bid. And I know there's a Zoom if you can't physically be here.
We call in.
Yes, you can do the Zoom link.
Oh, okay.
And you can just do the phone number, you don't have to be on screen. Main event is next week. I hear it's sold out, so that's exciting for fundraising purposes. So yeah, that's Marion State of the City. If you haven't RSVP'd, I think there's still time on March 8th, so let Gayla know. Anyone else, communication or calendar comments?
I assume with the weather that Lisa's watching and worried about, that as far as the board visit, Shannon, you'll just send us a...
Yeah, we'll let you know ahead of
Yeah,
time what the
okay.
contingency plans are for the board
Well,
visit
the
on
reason why
Thursday.
is I think they sent out a thing for us on having lunch or something there.
Yeah, and it's just a good to-go bag, so it's not part of the actual visit. It's just if people are busy and need that to go. So yep, I'll let
I
you
just
know
didn't want
ahead of time
anybody
what the plans are,
out
whether
trying
they
to
did.
skate through the ice. And that includes Matt on the Marion City Council.
Luckily, you can just stream it.
Zoom that one.
Or,
Let's
yeah.
hope it's just rain.
So, All right. If there are no other communications, we'll move on to audience communication. At this time, I will call those who have signed up to speak to the microphone in order of sign up. We'll receive and acknowledge comments, but we will not engage in dialogue with the speaker because of the set agenda for the meeting. Your remarks are limited to 3 minutes per speaker and should be shared in a respectful manner. And first up, we have James Thacker.
James Thatcher, 33 years, Linn-Mar School District member. Good public servants have an openness to learn, a desire to help others, and an ability to engage with others and lead by example. I found common ground at the last meeting with the Taste Great, Less Filling folks. Both groups spoke of supporting democracy. Rachel on this board with the news media said the sharing of ideas is what democracy is all about. Healthy debate is a mainstay of successful organizations and ultimately results in strong decision making. It has the ability to strengthen relationships critically important to working as an effective group, helps us consider perspectives that we otherwise may not have, and enables effective problem solving. We need students, parents, teachers, and everyone in between to make it work, none more important than the others. As I mentioned last meeting, the original Title IX and Iowa laws were done by legislatures made up of taste great, less filling folks. The Board of Education in Linn-Mar, however, took a unilateral, less filling approach to the 501(4)13 policies. The lack of democracy and healthy debate and considering the perspective of others that you wouldn't otherwise have is evident and why this board is having controversy. The board's words are meaningless when actions don't match. We speak and there's no interaction in these meetings, right? Here's an example. And I haven't seen any interactions after the meetings myself. This method of communication is certainly not debate. It seems like the all-powerful law is sitting behind a curtain afraid to interact with the public that you serve. Email isn't the best form of communication, nor is it healthy debate. As I've mentioned before, face-to-face is best. Therefore, at this time, Linn-Mar is failing to provide good democratic interaction nor providing mechanisms for healthy opposition or debate with opposition folks. If the Linn-Mar board believes in democracy and healthy debate, I suggest the following way of doing business. I suggest letting everyone know that this board is open to direct interaction. As I've suggested before, let people know you're available after the meetings to discuss controversial issues face to face. Be unafraid. It's not easy, but it is worth the effort. A special board meeting in the evening with just the taste great folks might be a good idea. Hear and interact with these folks regarding their concerns. And of course, a special board meeting in the evening with just the less filling people. Be unafraid to interact with your community members who don't have the same viewpoints you do. Learn what each side's issues are. See if there's a way to meet the most important issues in a way that can satisfy, at a minimum, both groups. Thank you.
Barb Johnson.
I'm Barb Johnson. I have 5 kids in this district. I'm not very happy I have to stand in front of this pathetic excuse for what is supposed to be a nonpartisan board. It's not a very good look, and the bad part is not only has nothing changed, but it's getting worse, right, Rachel? I mean, audience communication was changed, and yet none of us have had to sit through a half hour of the rest of you reprimanding her for her poor choice and actions because being a board member comes first, you remember? You couldn't possibly be held to the same standard as Matt, not to mention as your dictating president so casually stated, you are a board member first. Your well-being, your children, your spouse, your family, your livelihood all come last. You'll always be seen as that, so you better be careful next time you speak about something you clearly don't understand. You see, it's people like you who create a false narrative that others piggyback off of in the worst way. And I can say for one, as a parent, you could never know how my child learns and what is best for them to learn. Statistically, Americans have a hard time passing basic testing, not only because education is ever changing, but because the concentration is no longer on actual education, but instead on politically based radical social ideology that has absolutely no business being taught in the classroom. And the educators are there to support the basics, and the world, we teach them that. That's our job. Neglecting that right is the reason why ESA is a reality. Worried about funding? First off, it's not all gone. You guys will still get some money, but you need to spend it wiser.
Stop spending thousands of millions of dollars on facilities like tennis courts. Only a small number of the students are going to actually use. Pay your teachers more, especially those who have given you decades of their lives and deserve better retirement. Put more focus on safety. Make Linn-Mar the school parents want their children to attend. Stop basing every decision on politics and hurt feelings. Stop sneaking things into policy and grow up. You haven't learned, and that's why you're in this mess to begin with. You work for us and our kids, not a political party. And I'm tired of having to address the word-slinging, ignorant, sad excuse for a human, but you need to stop listening to your little lawbreaker over there. He's in Iowa courts online. I've told you that many times. He doesn't get to come in here and make claims and call us all names and have a record. He doesn't get to act that way and be escorted out of a state capitol because he can't follow instructions. He doesn't get to come in here having no children in the districts. He doesn't get to cite being a proud veteran and tell me, myself, who is also a veteran, to go kill myself because he didn't get his way over a public hearing. That man needs professional help. And out of safety concerns, I asked for him to be banned because my children attend school in these buildings, and it's a big safety concern. He shouldn't be here.
Marilyn Jones.
I have somewhat of a different approach, but I'm just going to start by asking that everybody sitting here and at home to start and just read Romans 14. It talks about the dangers of criticism and that we are not respecting each other's viewpoints. It talks about how we are not here to condemn one another. We are here to listen and understand where each other is coming from. When it comes to putting our children first. So I just wanted to preface with that. I know, or I feel like some of you are actually trying to do right by the families in this district. However, I feel it's important for all of us to look at all angles, especially under law, especially when drafting policy. I will continue to send you truth, biblical truth, and common sense in email form or any other way. I've communicated that with you, and every time I've stood here at this podium. I will continue to send you educational pieces and things that need to be reviewed, like the podcast that I sent, or links that share my view or perspective on that side of things. For example, I sent the board an email this week, and it talked about the CDC's website, and I gave them a podcast, and it showed that the WSCC model is something that the schools are implementing. It's a whole school, whole child, whole community mindset. It's got a virtual, fun little platform thing. You can go and click on a bunch of different stuff. It's very interactive, and it'll tell you exactly what they're doing with our schools, exactly what is taking place in our schools, and how they are targeting the behavioral and mental health of all of our children. Maybe not target is the word, but how they are using those through the counselors to bring in different implementations, I guess, throughout the district. Our schools are under the CDC control, and I feel like that is a very much why that is in our Return to Learn plan to this day. I'm asking for some sort of clarification to see if that is being implemented here. I did email on that, and I haven't gotten anything. I also haven't checked my email yet today, so there's that. But I didn't get anything yet. So if there's some sort of clarification that I can get on that, that would be great. We are turning, like I said, our schools into care facilities that are leaning on the behavioral and mental health of our students. But this model also pushes parents out. Moms for Liberty, okay, I'm the chair of that organization for Linn County. It's been in the news, and other fun little Facebook groups that are formed. But we stand for—
That's your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Clymer.
Thank you. I am really glad to have been present for the counselors and the specialists that spoke tonight. I was probably in denial this whole year that I had to meet with one of the counselors to plan for college next year. So that was great to see them kind of highlighting all the things that they're involved with in encouraging our kids to plan forward, and the parents also to plan forward, even if they don't want to, and their child is still a toddler in their mind. But certainly appreciate being able to be here for that part of it. Certainly amazing counselors. Shout out to Ms. Bass, who worked with us just last week. So for me, I'm glad to be here in front of you again, and really reiterating my gratitude to the work that you all put in for our students, for our district. Each time I get to participate in this board meeting, I hope to find areas in which we can agree, which I heard reiterated from others as well. And hopefully we can agree that kids deserve to be heard, that most parents and students and local taxpayers believe that all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, culture, income, abilities, household demographics, genders, deserve a quality education in a safe and supportive environment. That mental health supports and practices are critical to thriving children and communities, and we heard that really reiterated through our counselors and specialists. That fully funded public schools can better meet the needs of all the kids in the present and prepare them for a healthy future. We heard that as well, of what are we doing now and how are we preparing them. That diverse curriculum and books that recognize all of America's diversity and perspective enriches minds and promotes critical thinking as we prepare these young people. More importantly, helping kids understand that the world exists in multitudes of dimensions, that identities beyond their own are present in the community, in the state, in the country, in society, in the world. Our leaders, locally serving on school boards, city councils, commissions, county and state seats, should focus on problems that exist in our communities, not punch down at small populations of Iowans who are already vulnerable. And I hear that happening every time I show up here, is just punching down on our kids, on our families, on our communities that don't align with certain values that other people believe are their priority. I believe that some of you on this board speak for many of the parents and community members that also want to ensure that we look at all our kids and protect and preserve their rights. An article by Todd Dorman on Sunday's Gazette captured the sentiments well. The irony of protecting children is it's all about protecting some select children from imagined threats. The imagined threats include LGBTQ people, books that challenge their view of the world and history that paints a true picture of the American experience. And the article ended with, "We'll keep you safe from fake danger. Otherwise, you are on your own. Just stay innocent, even if that means you get an incomplete education." That just makes it more likely
It's your time.
that we'll someday
Thank
tolerate
you.
and brand the local leadership. Thank you.
Joe Stutler.
Good evening, I'm Joe Stutler, I live in the district. You guys already know that. One of my biggest fans already kind of gave you my bio, or some bio. I'm not really sure what that was. When crazy people don't take their meds, I guess. But I want to talk to you tonight about grooming. Grooming happens. Grooming happens in public schools. Oh my God, I found it. I found the evidence right here in our community. Kirkwood, pet grooming. Work with animals every day. Help pet owners proudly show off their furry friends by keeping their pets groomed and healthy. And it goes on. Kirkwood has a grooming program. They teach people how to groom. Other than that, that's not happening in our public schools. Grooming doesn't happen the way many, well, not many, a small handful of vocal, obnoxious people like to spin. They like to tell us that it's drag queens that are grooming. No, it's instructors at Kirkwood teaching you how to groom pets. They like to say that it's teachers that are doing the grooming. But teachers at Kirkwood are doing grooming. It happens. That's where the grooming is happening. At college level, pet grooming. A common myth is that child sexual abuse is perpetrated by strangers and pedophiles. But most people who sexually abuse children are our friends, partners, family members, and community members. About 93% of children who are victims of sexual abuse know their abuser. 76% of people who sexually abuse children are adults. The younger the victim, the more likely it is that the abuser is a family member. Of those molesting a child under 6, 50% were family members. It's not our teachers. It's not our board. Some of these folks need to look in the mirror if they're looking for groomers, or talk to Kirkwood. It's that simple. Thank you.
That concludes audience communication for the evening. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Rachel to adjourn at 7:34, seconded by Melissa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.